Some people, by the way they have lived their lives, have transformed the face of the earth. Saint Dominic is one of those people. Saint Dominic de Guzman is one of those figures in the history of the church whose impact is still felt today. And he was born of very pious parents. His mom was actually beatified on the way to becoming a saint. And even when she was pregnant with him, the legend is that she had a dream that she gave, it's kind of crazy, that she gave birth to a dog. And this dog had a torch in its mouth and ran all over, setting everything on fire. And when she brought this to her spiritual director, he said, your son's going to be a great preacher and priest, and he's going to evangelize. He's going to spread the fire of the gospel to the ends of the earth. And so Saint Dominic was his blessed Jane. His mother gave birth to him. He grew up. One of his brothers was also beatified, so it was definitely a very holy family. But as he grew up in the church, he was born in 1170. There was a lot of heresy in the church. There was a lot of people who were leaving the practice of the church, and a lot of it was because of what's called the Albigensians. The Albigensian heresy was traced back to a lot of ancient heresies that were fought during the time even of Augustine, St. Augustine in the 4th century. And these Albigensians, they were Gnostics, meaning they believed in secret knowledge, and it can only be achieved through rigorous penances and through rejecting the structures of the church. And God has spoken to us and not to anybody else. And one of the things they really believed was the material world was evil. The Albigensians really believed in the inherent badness and evil of the material world. It was created by a bad God, a fallen God. And so they rejected the material world. They would do all these penances and punishments of their own bodies. They would sometimes mutilate their bodies through penances, and even refrain from having children. They would mutilate themselves or castrate themselves. So this hatred of the body, for what seemed like pious reasons, might sound strange to us. Maybe it's actually pretty applicable in some situations in our society, but for religious reasons, was what he had to confront. He had to confront it by being even holier, even more intentional about his holiness and rigorous in his disciplines of faith, to help that these people begin to hear the truth of the gospel. So some of the things that Saint Dominic did in order to help win these people back is, first and foremost, he lived a holy life. He lived a holy life, and that was rooted in prayer and rooted in the scriptures. He was a man who was in love with Jesus Christ, that he knew the Bible. This back before the printing press in this is in the 12th century, before the printing press. And so he would have just a copy of the Gospel of Matthew and some of the letters of St. Paul, and he would commit those to memory. He would go around preaching and telling people about Jesus, and he could share not just stuff that he made up, but what he knew from meditating on the scriptures, to help people to see the error of their ways in heresy, but also see the truths of the faith of the Holy Catholic Church founded by Jesus. One of the other things that he did is help people who were afflicted by these heresies, that were in these bad situations, to help them to change, not just to condemn them to hell, but to help them. So the first thing that he did, one of the first public actions that he helped undertake, was found a home for women who had been kind of caught up in these heretical movements and a lot of times abused by them as well, to help them to reintegrate into society and to have a community that loved them and cared for them. That was the first foundation of what will later become Dominican nuns, Dominican sisters, Dominican nuns who lived in convents, and eventually Dominican sisters who lived and worked out in the world. So his care and for the heretics, for those, what he would call the heretics, that might be kind of a pejorative nowadays, but for those who were outside the church, that it gives us today a good example of someone who lived his life passionately to help those who don't know about Jesus, don't know about the truths of the faith. So by the way that he lived and the way that he preached, to share that with them. Also attributed to Dominic is the Rosary. The Rosary is that ancient Catholic prayer, which is a meditation on the mysteries of the life of Jesus. If you've never prayed a rosary before, you've probably seen it depicted in art or seen it depicted in movies. And the Rosary is that through the simple beads, praying over the Lord's Prayer and the Hail Mary, which is found in Luke's Gospel, and meditating over the life of Jesus. Because something that he really was convinced of, and the Dominicans have really helped to preach that, is the centrality of the incarnation, that God became one of us. And because of that, our faith and the world is shifted completely and totally. That means all of our pains and sorrows and heartache is all impacted by that reality because it's joined to the heart of God through the incarnation. So Saint Dominic, as a man in love with Jesus Christ, especially in love people who were far away from Jesus and wanted to share Jesus with them, he also loved Jesus profoundly in the scriptures and loved Jesus in and through the grace and gift and truth of the incarnation, that God has entered into this human condition and united us to himself. So we rejoice that Saint Dominic, he founded the order of preachers who did go out into the world and preach the gospel, did spread that fire. They wear black and white habits, the robes that they wear, which is reminiscent of that black and white dog that his mother, Blessed Jane, dreamed about. And God is answering that. God is using them and using many more people in that spirit of Saint Dominic who fall in love with Jesus to be able to share him with everyone who needs to hear the message, those who are inside the church and those who are outside the church. So we rejoice that God has called a man like Saint Dominic to be a great saint, and that he's calling all of us, he's calling you and he's calling me to be saints, that we are made for glory. We're made to share the glory of God, to bring that fire of the gospel out into the world. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this episode of Made for Glory. And thank you to all those who especially invest in our programming that we do here to make this happen, to make this show come to life with all the lights and the cameras and the production value that we have. It's because of those who sponsor us. And if you'd like to join with us in Saint Dominic Media in producing this great content, we'd love for you to jump on our Patreon page, and even a small monthly donation makes a huge difference. So thanks for considering that and for your generosity. God bless.